Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Kiner's Community. I am your host, David Kiner, State Representative for the 59th District in Enfield. I'm excited about tonight's show. Tonight's show will prove to be both educational and interesting to the viewers. Tonight, I will welcome two members of Enfield's Fish and Wildlife Unit. However, before I introduce my two guests, I want to inform the viewers as to where the Fish and Wildlife Unit stands today. As some of you know, and the rest of you will learn this evening, Enfield's Fish and Wildlife Unit officers, are an invaluable asset to our town and to our police department. However, due to a legal opinion last year by the Attorney General's office, the Fish and Wildlife Unit can no longer operate until the legislature fixes or amends some words in the statutes. I will be working this legislative session, which begins in February, with other area legislators to fix and correct this problem so that these two gentlemen next to me can get back to work for the people of Enfield. I would like to welcome to the show, to my immediate left is Captain Fred Kula, and sitting next to him is Sergeant David Wassung.
Thanks for having us.
Gentlemen,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being my guest this evening, and welcome to Kiner's Community. I'm going to direct my first question to either one of you, whoever would like to answer it. Would you please explain or tell me and the viewers at home just a brief history of Enfield Fish and Wildlife?
The Enfield Fish and Wildlife Unit was started back in 1970 when the community was growing and the sport of hunting was also popular. And this brought a concern to the Chief Stour, who was chief at the time, that there might be some problems. So he had got a hold of Donald Barnes, who was a NRA safety instructor. And they both got together and they researched the statutes, and they looked up Statute 26-6A, which at that time was for the constables for fish and game protection.
Okay.
And right after that, they started a unit up in 1970, and that's how we became into being.
Well, now, Fred, have you been a member since 1970?
Yes, I have.
You have. How about you, Dave? What year did you join?
1993.
1993. So from 1970 until last year, you guys have been continuously serving the people of Enfield, which we will be talking about in a few minutes in more detail. What are some of the duties performed by Enfield Fish and Wildlife?
Well, we're a very diverse unit. We do a little bit of everything. We do fishing and hunting, regulations, enforcement. We do euthanization of wounded animals that might be hit by cars or that are sick, that might have possible rabies. We'll do search and rescue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, sometimes battery recovery. So we really do a little bit of everything.
Wow, that's quite a range of duties that you perform. How many members are a part of your unit?
Right now it's 9, but we've had up to 22 at one point when we were really running strong.
Wow, it's a good size. Now, tell me, what is the difference between Enfield's Fish and Wildlife Unit, the difference between you and, say, the DEP or animal control?
Okay, well animal control officers, they have jurisdiction to handle the domestic animals, okay, which are like the cats and the dogs. The DEP officers, they are actually, by statute, state police officers. They have all the power of a state police officer, although you may not see them use that authority at all times. Right. But they have statewide jurisdiction over the fish and game laws. And us as fish and game officers in Enfield, we just have jurisdiction in Enfield. Okay. And we do the fishing. We basically have the same authority they do, but only in Enfield and only for fish and game type activity.
Gotcha. Now, during your when I asked you about the duties performed, you did mention a lot of duties that are performed on the water. So I assume you have a boat, correct?
Yes. We have a boat. We have an 18-foot Carolina skiff, which is designated as PBR-1, Patrol Boat River, a military type designation. It has police radios, marine radio, has an underwater camera, and all kinds of equipment on it that's required for that job.
And what are some of the duties performed on that boat?
Some of the search and rescue.
Yep.
People missing in the river. patrols for checking on boating laws, make sure people have the proper equipment upon their boats. One of the neatest things I think we do is do the AMVETS naval ceremony, where they have the ceremony on a river where they put a wreath into the river, and in the honor of the fallen naval personnel.
Right.
That was one of my. I like that a lot.
Sure, that's a great ceremony.
Right,
I've seen many pictures of you guys
Right.
performing that. You also, I've had conversations with you in the past about the 4th of July celebration and fireworks on the river. Now, if you patrol the Connecticut River, Dave, a little while ago you mentioned that you have jurisdiction in Enfield. Would you just stay in the Connecticut River just in Enfield, or would you go up to, let's say, Springfield or south? What is your jurisdiction on the water?
It would be the same borders. You know, we consider the power lines over near Riverside Park, or not Riverside Park anymore, it's Six Flags. We consider that the border. Okay. And we wouldn't go beyond that unless it was an emergency. Obviously, if someone was in distress or something like that, we would go help
Right.
them. But we wouldn't go check on somebody's fishing license, we'll say, on that side of the lines.
Okay. How about continuing on that train of thought with fishing licenses? What would you do on just a normal sunny day? You're not responding to any calls on the boat. What are some of the activities that you...
On the boat, on a normal day, you go down the river and check people for licenses.
Okay.
Make sure they had a safety boating certificate. It's very much like a driver's license for an automobile. Make sure they had life preservers on their boat, enough personal flotation devices for each person on board. Make sure they were safe.
Now, if they did not have the correct number of life preservers on board, or if they had committed some sort of infraction, do you have the ability to cite or give warnings?
Yes.
How does that work?
We do have the authority to write infractions, but we try to avoid that. We try to more educate people on
Sure.
what the laws are. But if there is some blatant violations, especially when it comes to the safety of children, like if there was a bunch of, say 6 and 7-year-olds on the boat without life preservers, we would probably cite the guardian.
Okay.
Of that, because that's a little too much.
Fred, before you were mentioning the unit's mission statement. Can you repeat that again to me and the viewers? It goes along with what Dave was just saying.
Well, the mission statement basically speaks to education of the public.
Right.
We're not out there to arrest people or give them citations and fine them. I think it's more of a service to our community, and to our citizens, is to educate them and let them go at that. Now, on the other hand, if they repeat it, well, then we'd have no choice but to cite them or give them verbal or written warnings, but we try not to.
Sure, it's a great service that you
Right.
provide to the
Right.
town of
Thanks.
Enfield. That educating really is key, especially to safety
Right.
for everybody using the water and land. Let's say now that there is an emergency and you are dispatched to a scene. Is there a phone number that somebody calls to get you, or how does that work?
All the men that ran on the Marine emergency team,
Okay.
we all had pagers. So the dispatcher at EPD would only dial one number, and that one number would page all pagers, and we would then call a station and find out what would, or get on the radio. We all are equipped with portable radios. Each man is.
Okay, so that's right. You mentioned, so you're a unit of the police department.
Right.
Yes.
So anybody who calls 911
Right.
would get the dispatcher, and the dispatcher would then
Page us for the boat,
page.
and
Correct.
you go to the truck or wherever you're in, and
Yep.
you get on your radio and ask them what it is, and
Right.
they send you to the scene.
Fred was talking specifically about, if there was a river rescue type thing. But if we're dispatched by, say a raccoon that's acting strange or something like that, if we were on duty, which is usually Saturdays, we'll be in a marked police vehicle, and we would be dispatched over the radio. During the day, there's always someone on call, so they would be called by dispatch at their home, and they would respond to that call.
Okay. I think we're going to get back to the boat maybe later on in the show if we have time to talk about some specific stories. But can you tell me and the viewers about some of the more interesting calls or out of the ordinary calls that you've been dispatched to? Dave, I'll start with you.
I can tell you a humorous one. It might not be the most important one, but it was humorous. I responded to a call at an apartment complex, and the complaint or the call was that someone had heard a cat meowing in a snowbank. And it had just snowed, and they had just plowed, and these snowbanks were about 5-6 feet high.
Yep.
And I got there, and a couple of people verified, yeah, they heard a cat meowing in this snowbank. And this isn't necessarily, like I said, we're a diverse unit.
Right.
They just didn't have an animal control officer on, so they called us. So I took my gear out, my entrenching tool and everything, and I'm carefully, but as fast as I can without possibly hurting this cat, looking for it. And I had 6 or 7 feet of that snowbank apart, and I hadn't heard nothing. So I had my radio next to me.
Yep.
And dispatch called me again, and I went over and said, 412, go ahead. And he says, we just got a call from that complainant about the cat call, and she had just remembered that on her keychain, she had a device that made the sound of a cat.
Oh, jeez.
And so obviously I had done a lot of work for nothing, but thankfully there was no cat in the snowbank. Wow. And the other people that verified they had heard it obviously were standing next to her.
Sure, they had heard her keychain.
And I still can't understand how no one would remember they had a thing that sounded like a cat in their keychain, but that's what happened.
Well, you're a good man, David. If there had been a cat in there and it was
I would have got
some child's cat,
him.
You would have made somebody very happy. So that's great. Something I think that we've neglected to mention so far is that the Fish and Wildlife Unit, you're a group of volunteers.
Yes.
You don't get paid by the police department.
No, not at all.
You do all of this because you love it and you're true public servants in that regard.
That's right.
Fred, how about you? Can you tell me about the most interesting call you've ever received? Out of the ordinary?
Out of the ordinary?
Yeah.
I got a call to go to South Road because there was an alligator walking down the sidewalk.
Get out of here.
So I said to the dispatcher, right, sarcastically. And I got down there, and there's a police officer, and he's got an alligator.
How big was this alligator?
It was about 2.5 feet long, And so I noosed him.
Yep.
I took him home, and I tried to find out what to do with him. And
Did you noose him by yourself?
Yeah, because he wasn't that big. I just noosed him, and
Yep.
I put him in the back of the truck and went home with him. And I called DEP, and at that time, that was alligators were. I guess you could buy alligators for pets, I suppose.
Right.
And they didn't know what to do with it, and nobody wanted it. So I ended up keeping it in the house all winter in a barrel. I had to feed it minnows, and eventually
in the house, in the garage, in the cellar.
Yeah, I had to keep a heat lamp on it so it would stay warm.
Wow.
Feed it minnows.
And
finally, I got a hold of a herpetologist in someplace down southern Connecticut, and he wanted it. And I said, thank God he took it.
Did you name it?
No, he wasn't
that
popular with me.
Too bad your stories weren't reversed and yours was a false alarm and you could have found the cat. But
right.
An alligator, though, that's something. Now, what if you're called and you encounter a rabid animal? What would you do then? I know rabies is has to be a big thing.
Right. Well, first of all, you wouldn't know it was rabid. It would show signs of having possible rabies, okay? And one of the signs is, if it is out in the day.
Yep.
Although that is not an automatic sign that something has rabies. We have had a lot of calls that, there's a raccoon or a skunk out during the day, it's got rabies. That's not true, okay? That is one of the small signs that might be something wrong. But if it's like stumbling around and acting drunk and walking in circles, then we would assume it had rabies. And we would, if we knew that it did not come in contact with a human or a domestic animal, we would euthanize it and just dispose of it. But if we got a call that had just had a fight with the family dog or came in contact with a person, we would euthanize it without shooting it in the head, because they have to test that in Hartford. They have to test the brain. And we would bring it to Hartford. They would do the testing. They would notify Fred. And Fred would notify the complainants. And if it was positive, he would tell them what the best action would be to take. And if it was negative, that's good news.
Have you guys encountered many rabid animals?
Oh yeah, we've had quite a few.
Yes.
There was a time a few years back when they started having them. We had maybe one every 2 weeks or so.
It goes in phases.
Really?
It goes in phases, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. But you know,
Do we know the cause of that? Why it would go in phases?
You know, I
well,
can't.
I think
maybe
it
Fred can
kills
answer that.
the rabies builds up and it kills off most of the sick animals.
Okay.
So all of a sudden the sick animals are all gone. So there'll be a few left that are sick.
Right,
But then the
okay.
population builds back up. They have more contact with each other.
Sure.
And, you know, it just spreads like any other disease.
And just to let the public know, any mammal can have and carry rabies. Any mammal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a raccoon or a skunk. It can be a squirrel. It can be any mammal, human being.
Now, for the viewers watching, how would you advise them to handle an animal exhibiting the signs that you just mentioned? And can you explain those signs again for the viewers at home and what they should do should they see an animal?
Well, one of the first signs would be if it's out in the day. But that doesn't necessarily mean you certainly could have a rabid animal at night.
Right.
But if you saw an animal out in the day, that's something to take a second look at. Okay. And if it's walking around almost like it's drunk, it's stumbling around, it looks disorientated, walking in circles, okay, that's a good sign it's got distemper or it's got rabies. There's something wrong with it, and it's got to be, we've got to handle that situation because it's sick.
Would you recommend the person who sees this animal to call 911 or call the police station landline or?
You know, I think the circumstance would really determine that. If the school's about to get out and the kids come down,
Right.
you know, right down that road, I would say call 911. If it's in their backyard, in a fenced-in area, they probably don't have, they can probably just call the standard number. They'd have to probably use their judgment.
Yep.
But, you know, err on the side of caution.
Right. That's good. Now, all of everything we've been talking about so far, normal layman would not be able to do. I would not be able to do what you guys do. So again, for that, I thank you. But that goes to your training. What kind of training is provided to you?
The folks on the boat all went to DEP training, boating enforcement training. Once a year, we qualify with our firearms by a certified academy instructor from Enfield PD.
Okay.
We do that once a year. Every month, we'd have a training session at the station. It would be either on writing warnings, writing infractions, writing summonses, train laws, because we do live next to the tracks.
Right.
A lot of the fishing takes place next to the tracks, where the tracks run along the Connecticut River.
Sure.
We've had those courses by certified officers on how to deal with the public.
Whatever
the police department had, we would train once, and we train once a month at the station.
Right. Well, I would assume some of these trainings must be pretty intense with the water rescues.
Yes.
And so again, that's great. Before the show started, or a couple days ago, I asked you guys to provide me with a few different pictures. Some we don't have pictures of here, but I wanted to speak briefly about before we do show the pictures, and everybody at home is eager to see the pictures. I always like watching those late night shows when people bring in the animals, but we've got pictures tonight. Looking through the pictures on the computer and through the photo album that you gave me, there was many pictures of the flood from 2005. Can you talk about the flood and your role, your unit's
Well, in that role, down on Bridge Lane area, down in that area down there, the whole valley there was flooded and the houses were inundated.
Yep.
And what we had done is there was not, you couldn't get in there with a boat running.
Yep.
So we had to get from house to house to get the people out of the houses. So what we did, two of my men did, Sergeant Daniels and John Rendock, they had to actually jump into the water and pull a boat through chest deep water from house to house, get people out,
Really?
and walk them back to shore. Yep. So they did quite a job in that instance, you know.
Yeah. Do you remember how long the flood lasted? You guys must have been busy the entire time, I assume.
That was a day or so
Day,
where it was that high there, where it flooded the houses.
Yep.
In that valley down there.
And most of the people we got out of there were elderly too. They,
Yeah.
you know, they obviously they couldn't swim or whatever it may be, or they couldn't wade through that water. So a lot of elderly people that we got out of there.
Wow.
And that was in October. That wasn't the warmest time of the year either.
Oh, that's right.
You know?
Well, a lot of people thank you for that, I'm
Yeah.
sure. One of the pictures that I did grab, and I'm going to ask them if they would put it up on the screen, that I found interesting, was a picture of a snake. I don't know if it's up now or not, but Fred, oh, there it is. It's up on the
yeah.
screen now. It looks like just an orange snake to me. Can you
That is
tell me about that?
that is a corn snake, and it's sold in a lot of pet stores, and people buy them. That one evidently got loose from the person. And I went on a call, and a gentleman was raking leaves against the side of his house. It was already cold, November. The snake had got under the leaves, and he was already stiff and cold. But they called me, and I picked him up. I brought him home, and that's in my kitchen right there. And I let him warm up, and I kept him warm. Unfortunately, I've got a greenhouse, and I stuck him in the greenhouse, so he was living there for a couple of years. I haven't seen him for a while, but he's there.
Still there, huh?
Still there, yep.
Why do they call it a corn snake?
I don't know, to tell you the truth, but
Maybe. But you're saying it's just a household.
yeah, you can buy
guess you could say
corn
pet.
snakes as pets, like you buy boa constrictors
Legally.
legally. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So
Wow. And you ended up, how about him? Did you name him?
no, I didn't give
So
him a
you
name.
kept
no.
you kept an alligator and a
kept
snake.
an alligator, yeah.
What other wildlife have you
Right,
taken home
right.
over the years?
Oh.
Well, yeah,
Everything.
I've had a
Everything.
raccoon,
Yep.
you know, your kit, and a ferret.
Yep.
You know, you get a lot of
Yeah,
diverse-
I have also
you too,
saved a lot of baby animals that I took home, and my wife nursed back to health.
Oh, it's great.
You know, sometimes you just don't have the heart to, and
Sure.
if they're healthy, well, the one thing we are about is if we euthanize an animal, it has to be euthanized.
Okay.
We will not euthanize a healthy animal just because it's in someone's backyard. There's a coyote back there.
Yeah.
It's wildlife, and they have a right to be back there. But obviously, there's certain circumstances. If it was aggressive toward children or something like that,
Sure.
that would be a different circumstance. But just because an animal is there, doesn't mean we take action.
Wow. You guys are great. How about an animal like this? I'm about to show the camera a few pictures, and I'll show you guys first. This black bear. I remember reading about that in the newspaper. So you actually responded to to
that
this
black bear was on Bridge Lane.
There's one. I got more to show.
Yeah, that's on Bridge Lane.
There's another one.
And that picture there that you're about to show is on Oliver Road after he was finally treed. He was not euthanized, but he was put to sleep.
Okay.
And he was transported to Tolland, Connecticut eventually. But he spent quite a few days around the neighborhood. We chased him across the river one day, then he came back.
Wreaking
River was
havoc
very low.
on the place, in
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And you eventually caught. Did you have to tranquilize him?
We didn't. The state has
The
to come
state-
down
the
and
state
do that.
came down.
Biologists
They're
come down.
certified,
Right.
All right, I have a few more pictures I want to show, and these were really interesting to me. This
Well,
is what looks to
is a
all
bobcat.
of us. Yeah, a bobcat.
And that's another
So-
instance where the station called me
Yep.
and said, I've got a bobcat dead on North River Street. And of course,
more close
I
up
said,
of it.
yeah, sure you do. I said, you know. And I got there, and there he was, laying. He was hit by a train, right by Bigelow Sanford, the old carpet mills there.
I would assume that most people in Enfield do not know that there are bobcats around us. Is
Yeah,
there
there's
a healthy population of
Yeah,
bobcats?
there's a few.
in the
Maybe
area?
not that heavy around here, but don't forget, most of them we find along near the river because that's a good corridor for them to travel.
Okay.
Not too populated. You know, it's an easy way to travel.
So you're saying bobcats more or less travel through Enfield rather than making a home?
They like their deep woods. They normally like the deep woods. You know, like up
Okay.
in Stafford or Granby, up areas like that. But sometimes they come here.
they're around.
I don't know why, but they do.
So bobcats, I had no idea. Raccoons, on the other hand, I had an idea, and I'm going to show these pictures next to the audience at home and to the viewers at home anyway. I'm sure both of you respond to many calls where this looks like to be somebody's home.
Somebody's nightmare when they got into the house. The raccoon got into the house, and then he couldn't get out. Of course, he tore everything apart looking for food. That's what they're doing. See, They do quite a job on
Looks
an
like they got into
interior
the
of a
trash
house.
can
Yep.
there.
Yep, he went through everything.
Now, was this homeowner away when the raccoon?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they came back
in.
in and found the house torn apart.
I'll say this, Dave, that raccoons, pound for pound, are the
Yep.
strongest, meanest animals you'll find around here.
Really?
Oh, boy. I've seen them, take off vents to attics, literally rip off the vents, rip the nails right out of the, I'm not sure if I could do that.
Right.
It's just incredible strength.
Yeah.
Incredible.
They do that.
I associate raccoons with rabies too. Are they the animal most prevalent to?
Skunks and
Skunks too,
raccoons.
huh?
Raccoons probably number one, skunks number two.
All right, everybody at home, stay away from raccoons and
And
skunks.
especially skunks.
Yeah, especially skunks for the obvious reasons. I would.
And
Yes.
another carrier of rabies is bats too. People have to be careful of bats. Bats get into houses and they don't know,
Okay.
and they'll sleep up in your curtains. You want to be careful. If you find a bat in your house, you want to let the PD know about it.
Yeah, we go to many bat calls, and they'll usually be in your clothing or in curtains. That's where you'll find them, 99%
And
of the time.
if you've slept in a room and you find a bat next morning,
Yeah.
you definitely want to let somebody know about that. That bat should be tested.
Because you may have been bit and
You
not
may have
know
bit
it.
and you don't know it.
That's true. You
Well,
may have been
if
bit.
people haven't changed the channel already because they were freaked out by the bat, I just want to let you know we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
And before I close the show, I don't have a picture to show everybody. I wish I did. But you said you let me know that there was an emu in town. Now that
Yeah.
that couldn't be wild.
That was an emo. I was on with my Lieutenant Gene Anderson. We were on duty and we got a call for an emu on North Shaker Road and the Washington Road. And
Okay.
I kind of doubted that too. Emu, I said, you know.
An emu, it's just a
It's
big
like an ostrich.
bird,
It's like an
ostrich-looking
ostrich.
bird.
They are
okay.
strong.
Big.
Yeah.
And we had a heck of a time catching him. We finally, the lieutenant tackled him. Finally got him down.
They don't fly, huh?
No, they don't fly, but they kick.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
They're serious kickers, so you got to be very careful. They can hurt you.
Any injuries in that one?
No,
No?
we got him on the ground and we had to tackle him. He got a little dirty, but that was, the only insult was to our uniform of being dirty.
Without getting into any specifics, because we don't have time, unfortunately, have there been many injuries in the unit, catching animals or dealing with hunters or fishermen?
No, not
Very
really.
few. And all of us have our rabies shots
Okay.
also. So if we have
How often is the shot good for?
Oh, you would ask us that. You know, when they tell me
Yeah.
to go, I go.
Okay, there you go. Gentlemen,
I don't remember exactly. But
I would
a good
love
answer.
to continue this conversation and be able to show the hundreds and hundreds of pictures that you provided to me. But unfortunately, we're out of time. So, Captain Kula, Sergeant Wassung, thank you for your many, many years of public service to the town of Enfield. The entire Fish and Wildlife Unit are a group of talented, devoted, and passionate volunteers who provide Enfield, as I've already stated, with an invaluable service. Over the years, you guys have come to the rescue of countless individuals who I'm sure were very frightened, which may be an understatement, by wildlife in their presence or in their personal property. You've got my word that I will do everything in my power to get you guys back out protecting and educating the public like you do so well. For anybody at home who would who's interested in learning more about the Fish and Wildlife Unit, Captain Kula has volunteered us his email address. So if you guys can put that up on the screen, feel free to email, again, Captain Fred Kula with any questions that you have or just if you want to learn more about the show. So gentlemen, again, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
It was a pleasure. Again, thank you for
David.
everything
Thank you
that
very
do.
much.